Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. In this video it's all about June, all the books I read for the month of June. I won't go in order from the first book to the last book. Instead, I have different sections in this video based on different challenges or different groupings of books I've read during the month. Let's get right down to it now. The first section is classics, so each month I have 2 classic books to choose from and I read 1 book. Now this is a list of about 50 or so classics I had at the start of the year, and a random picking program picks 2 of those classics each month, and I have to read 1 of them. What did I read in June? I read Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. What did I think? I really enjoyed this book. It's a classic adventure story. So we have Davy. We follow Davy through this journey. He finds out about an uncle he never knew he had. And the lesson of this book is, don't trust newly found family. And Davy should not have trusted this uncle, because this uncle is a bit devious and duplicitous and just does something terrible to Davy. I won't go into all that in this video if you haven't read this book. But anyway, this book is full of adventure. It's just full of escapades and danger, and it's quite compelling and gripping. It's also quite humorous in some ways in some sections, and I found some sections of this book so just over the top, so just larger than life, but they were also enjoyable. So you find yourself kind of rolling your eyes thinking, well, how could this be, but also enjoying it because the whole tone and feel of this book is fun and adventure and gripping and compelling, with great characters, some flamboyant, some over the top, but that danger element as well is right through the story, and this story remembers what it is and it holds true to what it's trying to do for the whole book. And poor Davy in this book, he just goes through the ringer. So much happens to him, but then he meets a character called Alan. And Alan is flamboyant, he's larger than life and a great swordsman. But also, when Davy meets Alan, you think, well, is he dangerous or is he a friend? A bit of both actually, I think, in the story. But when Alan's on the scene as well from that moment, the book also changes. That adventure level in the book just ramps up, becomes more heightened, becomes more daring, becomes more about danger and escapes and chases and all that sort of thing. And I like that in this book. This book is just adventure from the start to the finish. The book makes sense. It's got great characters, compelling characters that drag you into the story. I thought it was a great read. I don't know that with this book I would use it to judge other adventure books written later. I'm not sure about that. But this is a great classic story, a great read. I'm glad I read it. I recommend it very much. So what 2 classic books do I get to choose from for July? Let's find out. The Canterbury Tales. Well, I've not read this yet. I'm not sure about it actually, but let's find out about book 2 first. So, Moby Dick. Well, I've got a great choice, haven't I, between The Canterbury Tales and Moby Dick. On one hand, I think The Canterbury Tales may be a bit lighter, a bit more light-hearted, but also a bit of a challenging read as well. Maybe a bit long, I'm not sure. Then Moby Dick. Well, Moby Dick, we know it's long, we know it's a deep dive into philosophy and sort of things like that. We know it's not just about a tale about a whaler and a whale. So it's more than that, it's deeper than that. So what do I choose? I don't know. I think I'm leaning heavily towards The Canterbury Tales, but I'll find out during the month anyway. So the next section is about random country reads. So for each month, I have a random picking program pick 1 country from a list of about 50 or so countries. And I have to read 1 book from an author born in that country during that month. So in June, the country was Poland. I had to choose a book from a Polish author. What did I choose and what did I think? I read Solaris, written by Stanislaw Lem. Now this book is a modern sci-fi classic. I think it's more about humanity though than all the sci-fi elements in the story, despite it being based on a space station on a planet and having a creature that's a sentient life form that appears as like a vast ocean on this planet, an ocean that could be plasma or some sort of substance we don't know about. But this book is more about first contact and also about humanity trying to understand and grapple with something it doesn't understand and know at all. That's quite interesting in this story. We have the idea of competing ideas. We have different schools of thought running in history in this story over decades or years, even centuries, about this life form, how to communicate with it, how to deal with it. Do we kill it? Do we let it live? What do we do? It's also about this life form maybe trying to communicate with humanity or trying to reflect humanity back on itself to show these characters about themselves, about what humans really are in their core. That was interesting as well because the things that these people see on this space station, the visions they have, aren't always good. They're not always pleasant or positive. So it's interesting. Does humanity in this world building in this book, is humanity good? Is it worthwhile? Is it something that should be celebrated in this story? We're not sure in this book. I think it's a question in this story that's never answered. But anyway, it's compelling. It's quietly compelling, even though some moments are quite dull. The ideas, the concepts in this story are quite thought-provoking, and I think it's a story that lingers with you after you finish it. It doesn't make a great impact when you read it, but it's the thoughts and concepts in the book that will linger with you when you turn that final page and you start thinking about it, I think, afterwards. I did anyway. So as a book, as a concept, I do recommend this story. I thought it was good. Not a long read at all. It won't take you long to read, but I think it's worth reading and it's worthwhile and it really deserves to be a sci-fi classic. So what country will the random picking program pick for July? Let's find out. Remember, the starting list was about 50 or so countries, but after each month, with countries being pulled out, the chances get slimmer for a country to be chosen. So what about July? What country will it be? For July, the Czech Republic. I have no idea what book I'm going to read, but I'm sure there's a great list of great authors to choose from who were born in that country. I'm so interested to find out what book I'll read during July. The next section is monthly prompts. So at the start of the year, I had a video with 12 prompts, one for each month. And for each prompt, I have 2 books. One is a must read and one a read if I have time. Now, the must-reads sometimes have been hard to get because I'm trying to source them from libraries, things like that. I'm trying not to purchase them. The same with months all through the rest of the year. But let's remind ourselves of the prompt for June. Winter has arrived, so embrace the season with a mystery, thriller or atmospheric tale that chills in more ways than one. The must-read for June is Let the Right One In. If I have time, the read is The Turn of the Screw. So I did read Let the Right One In. Now, what did I think? Well, I thought this book was fantastic. It's gripping, it's chilling, it's unsettling. It is a vampire horror, but not your typical vampire horror at all. It is so different. There are so many layers, and this author, the author is just, I feel like the author stepped back and really thought about this, really thought about how to just write about all the themes and concepts in this book. There are so many layers in this story. What are some of them? The brutality of bullying, the chill of adult neglect, the weight of isolation, and the quiet drowning of hopelessness. But there's also a warmth in this story, and it's shown between 2 main characters, Oscar and Eli. The 2 main characters bring that warmth in their connection, and somehow these characters find each other in this world with these horrible things going on. Horrible things going on to them as well in the story. They find each other and form this connection. And that connection feels very fragile. Doesn't feel that strong at the start of the book. It gets stronger and stronger as the book progresses. But at the start, it's very fragile and you wonder about it. You wonder about these 2 characters. Will they hold on to themselves in this world? With all these things happening to both of them, these terrible things, these dark things happening to both of them, can they hold on? Because this book pulls no punches. It's dark, it's unsettling. There are things going on in this story that will make you feel uncomfortable, will make you squirm even in your seat when you're reading it. But it's one of those books where those things that are unsettling make this book as powerful as it is. It's what makes this book really that dark theme, that dark tone right through the story. The author just sat back and thought about what really makes someone feel hopeless or alone or just, unloved in the world. What makes people think like that and feel like that. And he took all that and he put that in this story. So I think this book is very powerful in many ways on many different levels. This book is well worth the read. Even if you don't like horror, this book has much to offer. It's not just about horror. It's about friendship and connection. It's about these two characters finding each other and forging friendship and even more in a world that feels against them. So this book at its core is about that emotional strength of these two characters. It's about that hope these two characters feel after finding each other. So you don't have to like horror to read this book. Even though this book is quite dark, I do recommend it. The book sounds like something you might want to read. And if you haven't read it yet, go ahead and read it now. So of course we have a prompt for each month. What is the prompt for July? Let's remind ourselves. Read a book that captures the magic or beauty of winter. It could be set in a snowy location or have themes of survival, quiet reflection, or cold weather coziness. My must read for July is The Snow Child, If I Have Time, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The next section is random bookshelf reads. So for each month this year, I have a random picking program, pick 6 books to read from my bookshelves. Now I started with a list of maybe 170, 180 books. And each month, the program picks 6 of those books for me to read. Now what are the books for this month? Let's find out. The first book is The Gene Thieves, written by Maria Quinn. Now, this book is sci-fi. It has an interesting concept, but the execution is quite poor. I was very underwhelmed with this book. So in this world, in this future world on Earth, we have this idea, this concept about people being able to pick their babies, basically. It's about breeding in the future. So we have this idea of surrogates, of rich people being able to choose surrogates and form these contracts with these women to have their babies. And they do this because they may think these women have better genes than they do. The parents may have illnesses that may be hereditary, and they don't want to give those to their children, their future children, so they get a surrogate to carry their babies. And also in this world, I think we have gene manipulation as well. We have scientists also finding different genes and patenting those genes and selling those patents to big companies as well. So it's also that undercurrent going on in the story. Now, all that could have been quite compelling and gripping in a book, but it's really not. It comes down to quite a few things. One of the main things is the writing style. I didn't really like that at all. We have paragraphs where we have different character shifts, changes in a paragraph, multiple times in some paragraphs. Happens all the time in this story and made reading this quite exhausting. Also, I just found the characters all felt the same. And I felt like just the stakes in this book weren't really held on to that strongly. They weren't that gripping and compelling in the story. So overall, very underwhelmed with the book. I think with a better editor, actually, this book could have been good. So maybe the editing is at fault in this story because the concept, the idea is quite intriguing. The Tower by Michael Duffy. Now this is police procedural. It does tick a lot of the boxes for that subgenre. But despite ticking all those boxes, this was also underwhelming as a story. Comes down to a few things. So we have a protagonist not very engaging or compelling. That was a shame really, because in a book like this, in a police procedural, the protagonist should kind of carry the emotional weight in the story on their shoulders really, and in this book it fails. So that was one big thing in this story. We also had kind of subplots coming up in the story that seemed to be forgotten as the book progressed. That was strange as well, because some of those subplots could have been quite interesting. They just seemed forgotten, or they were resolved too quickly and too easily. And also in this book we have the introduction of police politics. Now in police procedurals, or PP for short, in PP books, I think police politics are a great layer in books like that. Now in this book, it started out to have these concepts of police politics going on. And I thought, okay, this is a good angle to have in a story like this. I was quite excited for it. Then it just seemed to be forgotten about as well. I was very underwhelmed with that angle in the story. So there are many things going on in this story that just didn't hit for me, didn't hit well for me. And also the conclusion. We went from police procedural, or PP, went to action hero, Hollywood action hero. It felt disjointed, it felt over the top, it didn't suit the character as well. It felt like a character shift in the story, and also a tonal shift as well in the story. So many things in this book that weren't well done, didn't hit the mark for me. And this book is really a debut book. You can tell it's really a debut book that wasn't given enough TLC during editing or whatever it was by the publisher or editor. It needed more work done. The Wrath of God by James Graham. It's a pseudonym for Jack Higgins, and Jack Higgins is a pseudonym for Henry Patterson. So I'm not sure what that means about Henry Patterson. Is he trying to hide something, hide himself? I'm not sure. But anyway, this book is a true pulp action book. Really is. It reads like it, it's themed like that, the characters are like that, it suits the style. Everything about this book is true pulp action story. And it makes no apologies for that. So it's sometimes quite refreshing to have a book to know what it is and make no apologies. It's not trying to be anything else. The atmosphere in this book is also well done. It's set after the Mexican Revolution, and that atmosphere plays a big role in this story. It doesn't just play a big role for the main characters, but for every character in the book. And I quite like that because it made the world building and every character feel so consistent and real in this story. It's over the top. Action scenes are just thrilling and gripping. There's so much to like in this book. I mean, also in this book, we have a character. This guy, he's a priest, but not really a priest. So to see this guy dressed up as a priest, carrying around some sort of submachine gun or something, I mean, that's quite interesting in the story. So that's a big part of this book as well. Just things like that. As to the whole feeling of over the top things going on in the book. I enjoyed it, a great pulp action read. I want to read more books like this. Breakheart Hill, written by Thomas H. Cook, the first book I've read by this author, and it won't be the last. It's a mystery, but it's more than a mystery. It's really about memory and perception and truth and small town life. It's really about those undercurrents that happen in small town life. It's a big component of this book. It's set in Alabama during the 1960s in a small town, and I thought the atmosphere in this book was spot on. It really felt like a small town to me, that small town life with characters knowing each other, knowing what every person in that town is doing basically. It felt like that. Now, I don't know much about small town Alabama life in the 1960s, but from this book, it feels like this book is accurate and spot on. The characters in this book are amazing. The mystery in this book is so well structured, and like I said, it's more than a mystery really. It's about undercurrents in a small town. It's about small town memories, about how people perceive things, what is true, what is not, all that sort of thing in that small town life that adds atmosphere to this story. So for me, a great mystery, a great book, great characters, great depth in everything. It's a gripping read. It is slow burn, but very gripping despite being slow burn. So if you like books like this, give it a go. If you've read Thomas H. Cook before and not read this book, go out and read this straight away. I recommend this a lot. The Nightspinners by Lucretia Grindle. And the book I'm holding has two books in it, an omnibus version. It has The Nightspinners and also a book I read last month called The Faces of Angels. So this book, The Nightspinners. It has a great concept and it started with a great hook. So at the start of this book, we have a lady and she's being stalked by somebody. And potentially this stalker is the same person that murdered her twin sister. Now that's a great concept, a great hook. It's very gripping and compelling, so engaging at the start of the story. And the way it was written at the start of the story, those emotional stakes were so heightened and so gripping and intense. I was hooked and I thought this book was going to be wonderful. I thought it was going to be so much better than The Faces of Angels, which I read last month. But unfortunately, after that great hook, it changes. The book shifts. We have tangents, sometimes very long tangents, that just shift away from that core concept. That felt strange to me. We have bits of detail, chunks of detail, strange moments in the story as well, that felt just off kilter to the rest of the book. So we have this great concept at the start that's forgotten about during this big section in the middle of the story. It's quite unsettling when you read books like this because you just think, why? I don't get the tonal shift, I don't get the structure shift, I don't get those choices the author made in the story. Whether the author made them or an editor or the publisher, whatever, I don't get those choices because it just steers away from that great concept, that great heightened tension. Everything that hooked me into the start of the story was forgotten about during most of the story. Towards the end, we have returned to that as well. We have a bit of a hook towards the end, but unfortunately, most of the book just felt a bit disjointed because of all those tangents, all those long moments in the story that aren't just core to the central themes going through this book. The Husband's Secret, written by Liane Moriarty. So this book is more family drama than anything else. But it's family drama with a big secret. So this big secret is a core component of this story. So the hook is this woman who's married with a couple of kids, lives in suburbia, a comfortable life. She finds by accident a sealed envelope. and the handwriting on the envelope is her husband's. She recognizes it straight away. And presumably there's a letter inside, and she wonders, should she open it? And she thinks, well, maybe not. Maybe her husband wrote it for some reason, not for her to open right now. But she talks to her husband. Her husband is overseas for work at the time. They talk on the phone and she mentions it, and he kind of goes quiet and says, don't open it. I wrote it at a time, it's a mistake, don't open it, put it away or get rid of it. So this lady's interest is piqued, of course, and she's wondering, do I open it or not? Now that hook in the story is quite gripping because what secrets are in that letter? What secrets are in that envelope? I won't tell you if the lady reads it or not, or what is in that envelope. I won't tell you. But what I like about this author is she takes these characters who live in suburbia and she gives them secrets. She gives them challenges. And I also like the way that these characters aren't just black and white in morals, they're grey. They understand the choices they make, and they understand when they're making choices that are bad for other people or even bad for themselves. All the characters in books like this by this author are very self-aware. Love that in stories like this. And of course, things that happen between characters, they're intertwined. So we have secrets intertwined. They link characters in this book as well. But also in books like this by this author, characters also just do mundane little things. It makes them feel real. It makes their lives feel real. These characters just aren't about these big events that happen, these big shocks or twists or secrets. They're about ordinary life. And whether they take their kids to school, whether they just drive to work or make their lunch or eat their dinner or just go pick up the mail. There's ordinary things that happen in these books to these characters. And I do like that because it's all about just highs and lows and light and shade and grey things going on in their lives as well. But those ordinary moments in these characters' lives make these characters feel so real. So for a book like this, I recommend it very much because the characters are written so well. Their reactions, the things they do, why they do them, the motivations, everything feels real. There's tensions, there's undercurrents, there's secrets, there's things that really grip you as a reader in books like this. So there you have the random books picked for June from my bookshelves. So of course, we have to have now 6 books picked for July by the random picking program from a list that's getting smaller and smaller as each month goes on for this year. But let's find out what the 6 books are now. The first is The Quorum. Now I don't know too much about this, I can't recall, but I assume it's going to be some sort of thriller, mystery thriller, political thriller, something like that. Okay, book 2. Gone Girl. Now I haven't read this yet, and I bought this a few years ago at a charity book sale, so I'm glad I have to read this during July. Okay, book 3. Tangle of Lies. I don't know much about this book. I'm assuming mystery thriller, psychological thriller, something like that. Okay, book 4. The People Next Door, well, it kind of gives the impression maybe a dark thriller, maybe something almost horror-like. I'm not really sure, but I'll find out anyway during the month. Okay, book 5. Where Eagles Dare. Well, I'm thinking adventure. I'm thinking possibly warfare. Something like that. I'm sure of it actually. Okay, book 6. Slick and the Dead. I don't know much about it. I'm thinking something pulpish maybe, one of those kind of pulp action or pulp thriller books. I'll find out during the month anyway. So there you have the 6 books the program picked for me to read during July. So this next section is author deep dives. At the start of the year, I had different authors selected for me to read and concentrate on during the year. I'm not doing too well on that so far. There's still 6 months to go of the year. But I read one book from one of those authors during June. That author was Ian Rankin, and it's his third book in his series, and that book is called Tooth and Nail. What did I think? Let's find out. So this book is a crime mystery book, of course, and the whole series is crime mystery. It's the third book in the series to feature Inspector Rebus, and this book had a concept that really intrigued me, really hooked me into the story. It's about a serial killer, and I love stories about serial killers, I really do. And in this book, our character Rebus, he goes to London to help out on a case there. There's a killer running loose in London. So of course we have the standard things about serial killer stories in this book, we really do. We have the police trying to put out false stories and things to try to aggravate the killer, try to make the killer make mistakes. We have false leads, we have all sorts of things going on in this story. So think about this, your typical serial killer story, serial killer hunt in fiction. Those things happen in this book. In this book though, I mean, Rebus feels like he's not really a full character yet. I get the impression at this stage in the series, even after 3 books, that the author's just trying to really form who really Rebus is in this series. We get little hints about things that maybe are not working or maybe will be carried on in the future. It feels like the author's kind of find his feet with this character. It really does in this book. Not just in the character, but also in the series overall. It just feels like this author's not fully comfortable yet writing about the character and writing about the crimes really in this series. Even though the crimes can be intriguing and interesting, it just feels like this series hasn't found its full feet yet. I get that impression in this book. I also feel like the noir feeling in this series so far is strongest in this book. Out of the first 3 books, this book has the strongest noir feel. Really see that in the main character. I mean, he makes choices and decisions that aren't in his best interest, and he knows that. He makes them anyway. The classic thing about noir protagonists in noir books. The conclusion of this book felt Hollywood to me, too Hollywood. Didn't have that British style feel to classic mysteries and things like that. And this book, this series so far has had a British feel to it, more quiet, more understated. But the conclusion in this book was more Hollywood, more larger than life. And we had the cast chase scene, all things like that. I just thought the ending felt too disjointed to the rest of the book. Overall though, a strong book still worth reading. I will read more in the series, of course. I can't really wait to read the complete series because I have so many series going on. I'm in the middle of reading so many series. I have to finish some. I really do. The next section is ARC reads I read for the month. Let's find out what they were and what I thought. The first is With a Vengeance, written by Riley Sager. Now, if you know my channel and you know me as a reader from my previous videos, you'll know that with Riley Sager's books, they're not always an amazing win with me. I don't hate any of his books, but I don't really always rate them that highly. This book, though, is very different for this author. It's a bit of a risk, actually, for this author, but I think it's a risk that has paid off. This book was quite compelling, quite gripping, it's very fast-paced, and I quite liked it. It's set on a train, on a luxury train, and I think this book is based around 1954, 1955. We have this luxury train concept, so a closed, confined setting. We have a main protagonist who's out for vengeance, hence the title. We have characters invited onto this train for a journey. They don't know why, but they go to this train anyway for this journey. They're locked in, this train takes off, and it's not going to stop until it gets to Chicago or something, so quite a long journey on this train. And it's all because this protagonist wants vengeance on these characters for something that happened in the past. I won't go into all those details now, but all that planning, that concept is quite gripping and quite just engaging in this book. But as with books like this go sometimes, plans don't go as they're meant to, and the protagonist soon finds out that something else is happening on this train. Well, she can't miss it actually, because we have a murder. So this book becomes a locked room murder mystery. So I like all those elements playing out in the story because it just shifts this book in tone and feel. It shifts what's happening in the story. It shifts the characters as well. You make assumptions about characters, they keep changing. You like characters, you dislike characters, you think you know what a character is, then that changes. It just chops and changes all the time in this story. You even start to doubt the protagonist in this story. Is the protagonist guilty of these crimes happening on this train? So all that plays out so well in this book. As I said, it's a bit of a risk, I think, for this author, because it's the first time this author's written a book like this, but I think it plays out quite well. The author took a risk and he's won, I think. I think this book is quite a hit. I could recommend this book very much. Picking Up the Pieces, written by J.B. Abbott. I like this book. It's a cozy mystery, and I think it will be the first in a series. If we have more books in this series, I will read them. Now, the good thing about this book, the thing that really interested me in this story in the first place, is the theme. So the theme is jigsaw puzzles, and we have a group of people who are a jigsaw puzzle group. They get together and just do jigsaw puzzles together. And they're quite diverse. We have different ages, both genders, even have a high school student in this group. So all that plays out well in the story because all those characters are so different. They bring different things to this whole mystery they're all trying to solve. But of course we have a protagonist in charge of the mystery, it seems. She has a personal stake in the mystery as well. I won't go into all that in this video. But the mystery is quite good, it's interesting. There are some parts of this story that didn't work well for me in a sense that most cozy mysteries do. But I think overall it's very strong. It's worth more books in a series. I think the characters are good, the small town vibe's good. There's a lot to like in this series. And of course that jigsaw puzzle element is so intriguing and interesting for me because I love jigsaw puzzles. The Finer Things, written by J.D. Barker and Kyle Dunn. Now it's a horror. Not your typical horror. This book is also quite a mind trip, a very strong mind trip. There's just things going on in this story that just will take you on this journey that's twisted, that's dark, it's very hard to explain what this book is actually, because the things that happen, it's very fast paced, it's very over the top, but the characters, the way they're written and the way the book's written, everything fits very well, I think. There are some moments, I think, though, where the character reactions, maybe their depth is a bit thin, but I kind of understand why as well, because the characters have different psychological makeups that make them act in the way they do. And the book is meant to focus on different things, not so much, I think, on character depth. I think the book is more about pace. It's more about the events that happen in the story. It's also, I think, about these two main characters that disconnect themselves from emotional reality. That goes on in the story as well. It's also a bit of a satire on the art world, on what the art world stands for, on how the art world treats artists, how the art world treats art as well, how trends come and go, how sometimes art is disposable, sometimes artists are disposable. It's all about that as well. It's also all about the all-consuming nature of art on the artist, about how the art world also consumes both the art and the artist. So all those things are playing out in this story as well, in a very dark way. There is satire there. I think sometimes this book is almost dark comedy, almost black comedy if you will, but I also think this book is quite chilling because it kind of just brings to life all those ideas you may think about the creative worlds. Whatever creative world you think about or you may be involved in, there are bad things that happen to good people. It really does. So this book brings about that concept as well. I think it also talks about, the artists putting themselves in their art in a way. Blood, sweat and tears, sometimes quite literally in this book as well. So this book, I think, is really well told. It's quite chilling. It's quite dark. It's very fast paced. It is a wild ride. I recommend this a lot. Murder on the Books, written by T.C. Latempio. It's a cozy mystery and I expect will be the first book in a new series. This author I think has written other series as well, but it's the first book I've read by this author. This book has familiar ingredients of many cozy mysteries. So we have a protagonist returning to her hometown. And with her, she brings her own history of living in the town. And we also have characters that she meets again, people she knew in her life in his hometown, her younger life, her formative years. And that shared history they have adds to the world building and depth in this story. We also have her opening a bookstore. She wants to open a bookstore. That's quite familiar in many cozy mysteries. We have a cat she finds, very familiar in cozy mysteries as well, having a pet. And also that pet sometimes feels too human. that's also in many cozy mysteries. And also we have a police detective, and our protagonist and this detective have an attraction to each other that's also very familiar in many cozy mysteries. So many elements in this story happen in many cozy mysteries. I'm not too worried about that as long as they're done well. In this book, they're done quite well, quite strong. Apart from the cat, even though I'm a cat person, apart from the cat just feeling too human sometimes. Sometimes I think in cozy mysteries, the animals just feel too human. The mystery in this book was good. There were some red herrings that didn't feel too strong. But overall, the investigation, following the protagonist during the investigation was quite fun, quite interesting, and quite engaging. So overall, this book is strong. I thought this book was very well written, flows well. Cozy mysteries need to flow well. That's important. And if this book is a series, if we have more books in this series, I want to read them. So the last section of this video is other reads. Just books I read during the month that don't fit into the categories I've described already in this video. Immortal Dark, written by Tigest Germer. So it's YA fantasy. And I think this book is marketed as a romantic, dark academic fantasy. Of course, YA. So full points to the marketing team, because I think this book is quite popular. I did not enjoy it, and I don't really understand why it's so popular. I guess I'm not the target audience, of course, but this book has quite a few problems. So one of the main things in this book that is an issue is this idea of a sentient house. Now, the idea is quite novel, but the way it's done wasn't very good. Just felt like it was forced, nothing organic about it. I guess it's a metaphor in the story, but it just feels like not a subtle metaphor. It feels like a metaphor where you're hit over the head with it. Also in this book, why is the author so just consumed with people's eyes? There are so many descriptions about people's eyes in this book. Is this a thing about YA fantasy or YA romantic fantasy? Is it about eyes? There are so many metaphors and descriptions in this book about eyes. Here are some of them. They mirrored oceans in this book. We had eyes described as burning deserts. We even had eyes described as somehow glowing from within their pupils. Now that really confused me. I just thought, well, how can eyes glow from within their pupils? Your pupils are black, they're dark. How do they glow? I don't know. I want to know if the author knows, because I don't think the author does. I think it was something written into this book and nobody picked up on it. I don't know how eyes glow from within their pupils. Anyway, putting that aside, we have a concept in this book that is compelling. It could have been great. This character thinks somebody else in the book may have killed her sister. She's not sure, but she thinks, strongly thinks. That could have been very compelling. We have other world building in this book that is okay. We have rules that can be consistent in the story. We have things going on, of course, that are just over the top and ridiculous. And we have one scene in this book where there's some event happening in this location. The setting of this book is like a school, some sort of school. And we have one evening, one setting, where vampires in this school setting can do whatever they want. It's like a night free to go crazy and do whatever. No holds barred, no rules. You can do whatever. And a protagonist decides to tag along to that, even though there's great danger. She could get killed during this night. She decides to go along. And what does she do? She goes along dressed in some kind of skimpy dress or outfit or something. And I don't know why. What's the point of that? Is it meant to keep her safe? Can she move quickly in it? I don't think so, but I don't know why it's written like that. But it is in this book, mainly because it's probably romantic YA fantasy. It has to be written like that so the readers enjoy it. That's the only reason I can think of. But anyway, that's some of the things I like and don't like about this book, but it's not great. I think it's the first book in a proposed trilogy, so unfortunately I have to read 2 more books in this series, but I don't know if I'll enjoy them. Maybe I will, who knows. Maybe something in the second book will be better written, better executed. I'll read it. I'll read it openly to find out. I hope it's better than this book, but I'm not sure. Beautiful Ugly, written by Alice Feeney. I quite like this. It's a mystery and a thriller, but it's so tense and atmospheric, and I do like isolated settings, and in this book it's set mainly on this isolated island with strange characters, people who live there. And I like that. The characters bring so much, the setting brings so much. It's a book that doesn't have anything really there to drive the plot forward other than the characters and the setting. They drive everything in the story. Protagonist even doesn't really drive that much. I mean, protagonist makes choices and goes places, but it's really atmosphere and other characters on the island and the setting that forces our protagonist to do things. So really, it's a book that doesn't have this external kind of thing going on to drive things in the story. There's no, ticking time bomb. There's no stakes that have to be solved in a certain time period. It's all about just events that happen to the protagonist on the island at this time. And they're quite unnerving and quite unsettling, and I enjoy them very much. One of the things in this book that is a bit of a letdown is I think the protagonist is too docile. Protagonist could have been written to make, quicker choices, faster choices, more action, driving more things in the story. This feels like this character is more reactive than active. Sometimes that works in books, of course, but in this book I think it could have been stronger with more active things from that character than just reactive. Even though those reactive things are because of these eerie things going on this island, and those things were very eerie, very chilling, very unsettling. It was written very well in that aspect, but I think a bit more action from that protagonist could have added a lot more. Also, it's worth mentioning that this book has familiar tropes that we've seen before from Alice Feeney. What are some of them? Unreliable narrator, isolated setting, emotionally fraught relationships. Now, Alice Feeney has used these tropes before in different books, and should we make a big deal if authors just recycle tropes time and time again? I'm not sure, because a book is a book, and this book is on a series. It's isolated, it's a standalone. So if those tropes are used well, is there any harm in that? But then again, is Alice Feeney as an author just getting too comfortable and complacent in using the same things over and over again? Maybe a different setting, different characters, but the same tropes. Is that bad or good? I'm not really sure. I haven't decided either way. But I wonder, if this was her debut book, would I have rated this higher? Or do I just downgrade my rating sometimes without knowing, because the tropes are there time and time again, the same tropes she's used in previous books. Authority, written by Jeff Vandermeer. So it's a sci-fi, and book 2 in the Southern Reach trilogy. And this is so different in tone and feel than the first book. In the first book, we had this organic thing going on, organic setting, organic mystery, atmospheric. It was very chilling. It was just uneasy reading that, very unsettling. In this book, it's very different. Most of the book takes place in like this research station with a lab and other characters, but just feels very sterile, fluorescent lighting, all that sort of thing. Feels very modern. It feels very manufactured, not organic at all. And we have different protagonists in this book as well. So we have a character called John, but he's also called Control. People even refer to him as Control. And he's brought there to interrogate and question survivors from the first book. But this book is not just about that, not just about him interrogating these people, these women who survived from the first book. It's about him trying to get control of the situation as well, but also about other people, it seems, controlling him. So it's interesting that we have his name as Control, where it feels like he's being controlled by other people as well. And then this book called Authority. It feels like it's asking us to decide where the authority lies in this world. Does this character Control have authority, or do other people have the authority over him? There's questions playing along like that in this book. And character-wise, we have a character called Grace, who hates this character Control and wants his job. There's great tension there between those two characters. We have another character called Whitby, like a scientist there at this station. And he just feels like he's very unsettled, falling apart, very unstable. We don't know why. We slowly find out why. I won't tell you why in this video, but it's unsettling and very atmospheric as well in this book. There's atmosphere in this story, so despite it feeling like a manufactured, very sterile, very grey environment, it's very atmospheric as well. A lot goes on in this story, and most of that is driven by this character John, or Control, and is referred to as both in this book. There's great tension with characters. There's mysteries, many layers going on in this story. Very different tone and feel to book one, totally different, but I think it makes a bit of an impact because of that. I enjoyed book one more, but I still enjoyed this read very much. The Return of Ellie Black, written by Emiko G. It's a mystery, and this book was structured in a way it felt like a true crime documentary. It really did. We have the present day and then sometimes little snapshots of what happened to the main character. And it felt like almost retellings in a true crime documentary, the way it was written, the way it makes you feel when you read it, the emotions playing along in those chapters as well. And that main character, the main character, Ellie, her chapters through her eyes about what happened to her. It's so confronting. It's so powerful. It's a real story about struggle and survival, about doing anything you can to get through. It really feels like this character goes through the ringer, basically. Just all the bad things you think about could happen to this character. It feels like a situation that this character is just desperate to get out of, doesn't know how she can get out of, but the desperation comes through so strongly in those chapters. I really think those chapters are very powerful. They're very unsettling, but they're very powerful. So most of the book plays out in a very structured and very powerful way. There's a twist though towards the end, and with that twist, the tone and feel shifts. And I don't think after the twist, I don't think the book feels like the same book. It feels disjointed. That's quite disappointing because before that, the book was just running along very well, very gripping, quite chilling, very engaging, and suddenly it shifts and becomes something else. I didn't really enjoy what the book became after that twist. But this book is still overall quite strong. Overall, I think go and read it. It's not a very long read, quite a short book, but I guarantee you'll love those moments before that twist happens. Acceptance, written by Jeff Vandermeer, so sci-fi and the third book in the Southern Reach trilogy. I enjoyed this book as well, and again, it's different in tone and feel to the first two books in this series. It's like every book in this trilogy is different in tone and feel. It's almost a deliberate choice, I think, and I wonder what went through the author's mind when he made that choice. Anyway, in this book, it's so different. We have point of views from different characters. They're chapters from different characters. We have past and present narratives that's so different from the first two books. We learn so much more about the world building. We learn so much more about the past and how that past ties in to what's happening in the present day. That was great, I think, because it makes us learn more about different characters as well, and the situation these characters find themselves in the present day. I can't explain to you too much in this video all about that because it will give too much away. It'll be spoilers. But just know this book, it tries to provide answers. It doesn't give you all the answers. So this book ends being ambiguous. This book ends on great mysteries. But it feels like, despite that, this book provides a great ending and a great resolution. That's quite strange. I don't know how the author does that. But despite having all these open questions not answered, this book just feels like it answers everything. This book makes everything feel complete. It feels very much like the X-Files. You know, when you have X-Files mysteries playing out on that TV show, where you get ambiguous things going on, ambiguous answers. You don't get everything. Things are shrouded in mystery. This felt very much like that. We have great characters, we have great situations and settings, great atmosphere, great world building, great discoveries in this book as well. I enjoyed this very much. Orbital by Samantha Harvey, a sci-fi, a very short book. Not a novella, but a very short novel. And this book, I think, won the Booker Prize in 2024. If you want to know more about the Booker Prize, I did a video on that on my channel previously. I'll put the card up on my screen here. Just click on that and go to that video if you want. In that video about the Booker Prize, you'll learn more about how books are chosen for the prize, from books from a wide selection to the long list to the short list, and also other things about that prize as well. The thing about this book is I didn't really enjoy it at all. I think many people do. I think many people think they should enjoy it because it won a book prize. I think this book is just quite awful, actually, quite badly written. Basically, in this book, we're led to believe these astronauts, every character in this book has deep thoughts. Every thought they have is deep and poignant and just wonderful. We should just accept that these characters don't have mundane and everyday thoughts at all. Every thought they have is just so thought-provoking and just wonderful and deep and just amazing. I don't buy it at all. I don't mind books that are introspective. I quite enjoy that in books. But not every thought characters have, not every thought every character has to be so profound. It doesn't have to be at all. It feels like to me, this author is projecting herself onto every character so many times in this story. It's quite obvious, actually. This book should have been just about her, about the author on the space station, about her own thoughts, about life and the earth and whatever, history, the life of her family, all that sort of thing. All the things these characters think and feel could have been her thoughts, her feelings. That's what it feels like to me about this book. It's not so much fiction, it's more about just her projection on these characters, her projection into this short story. And why so short? This book is super short. Why so short? Well, I'm not sure really. I just think because there's not much you can write about characters on the space station without being too repetitive, but making it too mundane. You have to make this profound thoughts about these characters to make it seem interesting. And for me, I kind of get what the author's trying to do, but it's not interesting at all. The Familiar, written by Leigh Bardugo. It's historic fantasy. It's set, I think, during the 16th century in Spain during the Spanish Inquisition. And that setting, that concept, could have been amazing in a book. It really could have been, but it's not. This book is just repetitive. This book is slow burn without the burn. It's just slow. It just kind of steps along so slowly. It drags along. You're waiting for something to happen, but just what happens feels like it repeats itself time and time again. We could have had great things in this book because the concept, the premise is interesting, but the way it's written, the way it's executed is not. This book is just quite dull, actually. For most of the book, it's very dull. As historic fiction, it even fails. We have an historic setting without much detail and depth. Are we really having events taking place in 16th century Spain? Well, I don't know. Apart from a few brief descriptions about clothing or about a building maybe, or the fact that people are riding on horseback or walking somewhere rather than taking a car or a taxi or whatever. We have no historic description and depth to speak of. That's quite disappointing. Now understand, this author has written books before. This is not a debut book at all. So why is this just so badly written? Why do we have slow burn without the burn? Why do we have historic fiction without historic detail and depth? I don't know. Even character-wise, the characters aren't that deep. It's pretty much surface level. We have this romance going on in the story as well. It feels just so awkward and uncomfortable, or not really a romance at all. So I don't know what's going on with this story. I don't know why it's so popular. Is it popular because the author may be popular because of other books? I'm not sure. I will read more books by the same author. I don't believe in dropping authors after one book, but maybe just this book is a failure for me. Maybe other books the author has written will just be better for me, will hit better for me. Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, written by Heather Fawcett. Now, it's a cozy fantasy, book 2 in a series. Now, I don't know what it is about this series, but so many people seem to love it. I don't. And this book had the same challenges for me as book 1. And in fact, much of this book, in structure-wise, just feels like book 1 with a few twists here and there, a different location, maybe a character change here and there, but it feels like book 1 just rejigged a bit to make it feel a bit fresh and new. It really does. Character-wise, well, I'm not a fan of most of the characters in this book. We have a return of Poe, who's a Fae character. I think this character has come back from popular demand, actually, because this character was the best character in book 1, anyway, I thought anyway. And I think many other readers may think that as well. We have that character come back, and thankfully, because other characters just aren't that interesting or intriguing. We have events going on that aren't that gripping or intriguing. We have very little world building in this book. And this book is about magic, about Fae creatures and magic. Why not have this book full of wonder? Why not have this book full of enchantment? Just make everything in this book stand out, because in this book, there's not much of that at all. I just don't understand it. You've got a concept and a premise that just invites so much imagination, so much world building, so much wonder. Just, it's like a gift. This author has got a concept and a premise that's like a gift, but it's in her hands and she's just not doing anything with it. I don't get it. I don't know why, but this book, this whole series could be so much more. What we have is, quite dull actually in comparison to what I think this could be. And we have characters that don't make a big impact in my view anyway. So I don't know about this series. I think there's another book in this series so far. I think it may be a collection of short stories or something. I will read that because I'm a completionist reader. But I just hope that somewhere along the way, this author just finds a bigger sense of magic and wonder to really bring this series and these characters to life more. What Moves the Dead, written by T. Kingfisher. It's a novella, it's horror. It's meant to be a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher. I don't really think it's so much a retelling. I think the author's borrowed elements here and there, key elements to build this story out. And I think in some ways, this story just doesn't feel like the author's whole story. That's my feeling anyway. But on this book, I like the horror elements. And I think this book is primarily focused on horror. Sometimes I think that focus is too much. I think the horror is so important in this story and this novella that character depth, that depth in world building even, is forgotten or sometimes pushed aside. And maybe that's because this is so short. Maybe the author doesn't have enough space to go deeply into all the things this book needs. That's one of the things about novellas actually, I think, that I don't think all authors can really cope with novellas, and maybe this author can't. I do like the horror elements actually though. I like the fungus, the fungal elements, where that plays out. I thought that was a good thing in this story. Quite chilling, quite gripping, quite well told. But I want more character depth as well in this book. I think those character reactions, I think those character details are quite missing in this story. What Feasts at Night, written by T. Kingfisher. It's a sequel to the other book I mentioned in this video. A novella as well, but more of a cozy horror. This book is still horror, but has more cozy elements in the story. And this book feels more genuine, more like the author's own work. There's no retelling in this story. I was so glad for that, because this kind of shows the author can have her own ideas and bring something, of her own construct into a story. Of course, though, a novella, and with this novella, we also have characters where they're not always deep enough. They don't always grow enough. The world building isn't always deep enough as well. There are some good elements in the world building here, and there are a couple of characters I really like, but the characters I really like the most aren't the main characters. They're characters that I think may be for this book only. But taking all that away, I like the folklore horror elements in this story. That was well done. I wanted more depth in them though, so even though they're interesting and intriguing and are a bit compelling and gripping in the story, I want more depth and detail in that folklore. I think the author ran out of room to put more depth and detail there. It's a shame really. I just really hope this author just writes longer books. Why write novellas all the time? Is it just quicker? Is it easier? Can you get more of them out there? Don't you have enough of a story to make a longer story that's more in-depth, that's more detailed, with better characters and fleshed out characters and fleshed out horror moments? Can't you do that in a story? But despite all that, this was better than the first book. I enjoyed it, but I just want more from this author. I want longer stories, I want more detail, I want more depth. There you have all the books I read in June. It is quite a long list for the month. This will be quite a long video probably. If you've read any of the books, let me know in the comments and your thoughts on those books. Did you agree with me? Do you love books I don't really like? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if you want to read any of those books as well. Also, as usual, let me know your favourite reads from the month of June. I always like adding books to my TBR. The more books, the better on that list, I think, because sometimes I am a bit of a mood reader. Sometimes I pick and choose from my TBR what I want to read at the time. So who knows, the books you write in the comments, those suggestions, may be one of my next upcoming reads in the next month or so. On my channel, I review books from all different genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.